Welcome back to my garden. It's been a little while since we did a garden tour video. Life has been busy and I just haven't brought my camera out here. So we are at the end of summer. Actually, yesterday was officially the first day of fall according to the US calendar. The garden is sort of in a place of sleep but also awakening. So a lot of the summer crops have come to an end or are slowly coming to an end. But I have a fall garden planted and I'm going to be putting a few more things in this week, and that part of the garden is just waking up with newness. So it's kind of an in-between stage here. I'm going to walk you around and show you every bit of it. My garden space, this space plus a small space that I have across the way, together equals close to 3,000 square feet. I follow a no-till gardening method. This is something that I have slowly transitioned to in the last couple of years, and it really was a game changer for me. I am a busy mom of 10 and I have a lot of plates spinning. Spending time in the garden, although I love it, it doesn't happen regularly. I just have a lot going on, and so having a garden that gets overrun by weeds or needs daily watering, it just wasn't going to work for me. But because I do preserve food and I want to feed my family from the garden, I still wanted a productive garden. I wanted to have my cake and eat it too. So I came across the Back to Eden gardening method. There is a free documentary that you can watch on their website if you go look up Back to Eden documentary. And in it, the man talked about the benefits of no-till gardening and just loosely how to set it up. And so over the past couple of years, I have been converting our whole garden into a no-till method. And this year, I really started to reap the rewards of that effort. My garden did very well this year with very little maintenance on my part. Even in the summer, when here in Missouri we had weeks of terrible just hot conditions and no rain. It was just a short drought season for us. My garden didn't need to be watered regularly. I watered deep watering about once every 3 weeks, and that was just incredible because I had friends around me who were having to water every day, sometimes even twice a day, to try to keep things alive during that time. Now, the only time I do water daily is when I put new seeds into the ground, or seedlings, because they don't have deep roots. And also, when you plant in a no-till garden, the way that you plant is to pull back the mulch and plant in the dirt. And then once those plants grow up and are strong enough, you can gently bring the mulch back around them, which will help to keep in moisture and keep out weeds. But during that vulnerable time when you have seeds in the ground or brand new seedlings, you have to be on it just like you would with any gardening method of regular watering. So during that time, I just keep a sprinkler handy and I water that area twice a day and then once a day, and then I put the mulch back around the plants, let the roots get established, and they're good to go. This year we met a man who has his own tree service, and he was so grateful to connect with us and have a spot to dump his mulch. And that has really been a blessing for me, because they say that you should ideally, when you're starting a new garden, have 4 to 6 inches of mulch, and that's a lot of mulch if you're talking about 3,000 square feet. So being able to have a surplus of mulch here has really helped me to fully try out this gardening method and reap the benefits of it. This year, Jason also built me a greenhouse, which you see here on the left, and I'm really excited about being able to garden all year round with that greenhouse this winter. So one thing that I enjoy about gardens is that they are beautiful and enjoyable to be in, as well as functional as far as providing food. And so I lay things out in a little bit more of a cottage garden type style with groupings here and there. Right here when you come into the garden, you'll see the eggplants. I was so happy because early on, if you watched one of my earlier garden videos, these plants were hit hard by aphids and I didn't know if they would survive. However, they overcame it on their own and they did great. Now, I planted 2 different kinds of eggplant this year that were not traditional. One produces small, bulbous size. Here's one right here I can show you. You see the purple and white variegated. And the other one is a snake eggplant, which produces these really long eggplants. Both of them were very tasty, and I was so pleased with them. I got all of my seeds from Baker Creek this year. If you're interested, you can just go to their website and look them up for yourself. Behind the eggplants, I had one small row of tomatoes. Like I said, I had tomatoes clustered here and there. I used this paracord. We had a bunch of paracord extras, and that worked well because it was strong enough. Last year, the wire that I used ended up breaking from the weight of the bushes, but the paracord held up just fine when it came to weight bearing. So tomatoes are pretty much done. There's just a couple ripening here and there, but for the most part, it's time to pull them out. We're done with those. Now over here, we had another row of tomatoes, but then I had some jalapenos. So these are an orange jalapeno pepper, and you can see they are, hang on, I got a clear spider web out of the way here. They are prolific. They really did well this year. So starting peppers from seed as well as tomatoes can be a little bit tricky in our area. They require a lot of warmth to grow. And so this year I actually had purchased seed heating mats from Amazon. It was only probably $15 for a mat. And I set my little seedling pots on those mats. And that did wonderfully. I had a great success with germination because it warmed the soil continually. So I'll put a link for those if you are interested for next year. We have a little bit of basil here and also some marigolds that were interspersed with the tomatoes just to kind of keep away bad bugs. As you can see, this area is just done. I haven't gotten tomatoes off of that for a while, and it all needs to be ripped out. I also grew some Swiss chard, and this grew all summer. We picked off of it the whole summer and it just kept on growing. Along the path bordering this fence here were zinnias, and they were gorgeous. Of course, they're dying down now. You know, it's that sad, slow dying of the garden, but they were absolutely gorgeous this year and got so big that they almost overtook the path itself. So you have to kind of walk around a little bit. Check out this volunteer tomato plant. I'm so interested to see if it will produce, because it actually, look at that, it did. How about that? Well, this could be one of those little late bloomer surprises that we didn't expect. That's pretty fun. Okay, so down here is the herb garden. I am really wanting to expand to a legit large, maybe 200 square foot herb and medicinal tea garden. We'll see if I get that done this year. This served us well. I have picked it quite a bit to dry the herbs. I dry them in my dehydrator, and then I just crumble them to put them in the jars. Also, we have made a lot of pesto that we've put in the freezer from that basil plant. This is oregano, thyme is down there. These are just some leftover green onions, some chives, and that sage bush. I had a large calendula bush right in the center that I harvested a lot of flowers from for making salves. That bush died. However, some of the seeds had dropped off the plant and seeded themselves, and we now have fall calendula growing in its place. How cool is that? Looks like a little tiny dill plant too. An online friend of mine wrote a book, an ebook, all about using medicinal herbs, and I was so excited to start reading through it because I've checked out books from the library this year that are about using medicinal herbs, but quite frankly, there's so much information in these books that I never made it very far through them. I'm just in a busy season of my life, and I need like quick and to the point. Here it is. Here's what to use it for. Here's a caution if there is one. Here's how to prepare it. Just really easy, like something that I would jot down if I had the time. And that's what her ebook is. So I asked her if it would be okay for me to share it with all of you, because it might be something that's a blessing for you as well. So I will put the link to her website in the description box so that you guys can go and check it out and purchase one for yourself. You'll be glad you did. Okay, so I know it's hard to get your bearings, but we are walking straight down the front of the garden to the other end where Jason had built me this gorgeous trellis this year for Mother's Day. I have some lima beans growing up here. I'll show you my other larger lima bean section. But along this perimeter were the kids' gardens. So we had boxes here for each of the kids who were interested in gardening, and they could plant whatever they wanted. The kids were super gung-ho about their gardens very early in the spring, and now they still come out once in a while to check on things, but you know how kids are. They're kind of like, well, that was fun. We're over it. Okay, so right here on the other side of the kids' gardens are my lima beans. This is my first year growing lima beans, and I am not sure how I feel about them yet. As you can see, the plants are gorgeous, so big and healthy, covered with flowers, huge. Just overtook this. The trellis itself only goes to here, but you can see how high up they went on their own. However, I have hardly harvested anything. One meal, I'd say one good meal is what I've gotten off these things so far. And for such just massive looking plants, I'm just not sure. So my hope is that maybe they're just getting started. I mean, it's been over a month that I've slowly harvested to get that one little meal, but maybe more are coming. I don't know. I guess I'll keep you posted, but they're sure impressive looking. This is an old cucumber area. My cucumbers overall this year did not do well. I only got about 33 quarts of pickles canned, and I'd been hoping for at least double of that. So that was kind of disappointing, but you win some, you lose some. Last year, cucumbers were great for me. This was an experiment that I'm really pleased with. Check this out. A couple of years ago, we had squash bugs hit our garden so bad that they killed everything in the squash family. And I tried all of the organic methods that my neighbor told me about, and I wasn't able to get rid of them last year. This year I tried again. I planted blue Hubbard squash early in the spring. This is a technique he told me. And then it's like a sacrifice plant. So as that plant grows and the squash bugs come to attack it, you kill the squash bugs by torching them. So we did that, and then in the late summer, I planted zucchini seeds, hoping that the squash bugs would have been killed off enough, plus with the temperatures changing, that we would have some success, and we have. Now, I've only planted 2 plants because I didn't want to give up too much garden space to something I wasn't sure if it would work or not. You know, in hindsight, I wish I would have planted more because they did well. So I'll know for next year that you can trick the squash bugs early and just plant your zucchini later. Right next to the zucchini, we have a hodgepodge of beauty. These Silas plants. We had hundreds of volunteer plants in the garden, and I gave a lot of them away, pulled up the rest, and only kept 3 here because you can see how massive they get. This pink Silas plant is just one plant, and it is huge. Very beautiful. Yellow, golden one back here, and a second yellow one. They're just for beauty, just because I like a little bit of color here in the garden. We also had hundreds of zinnia plants, and we moved those all over the garden and also gave dozens of them away to friends who would come and stop by. So you can see the zinnias are, in addition to lining the front of the garden, there's just little patches of them all throughout the garden space. So down the line here from the Silas, we have more pepper plants. These are starting to fall over. They're reaching their end, but wow, were they prolific. These are some sweet Italian frying peppers. And we also had some yellow monsters here. They just did amazing. I was really pleased with the peppers this year. Next to peppers, we have the okra patch. Our first round of summer okra died. That was the end of that. And I did plant some more for fall. That's these few plants that you see here. We had so much okra last year that I planted less this time around. Probably should have planted a little bit more, but you know, live and learn. I had enough to do what I wanted to do. Some of these we are letting go to seed, so you can see that really long pod there. We'll let it dry on the plant so that we can collect seeds for next year. Okay, so we have the lima beans, and next to it we have what's left of my purple beans. These have produced all summer, and they are still producing, even though the vines themselves look like they're kind of drying out a little bit, you know, reaching that end of fall look. The plants are still producing. It's amazing. So I had 2 kinds on these trellises. I had the red noodle beans, which grew prolifically early on. We ate a lot of these, and I actually canned a lot of them with pressure canning. So those vines are almost completely done, and I did leave quite a bit of the beans themselves on to make sure we had plenty of seeds for next year. But the second half I planted up with the purple beans again from Baker Creek, and as they've grown, it's been pretty neat timing wise because the plants have now grown in to fill in the space where these red noodle beans are dying out. So you can see over here they're really doing a great job. These are all the purple beans that I need to pick whenever we're done chatting here. Brought a basket out with me, and I'm going to do a harvest because there are a lot here, and I'd like to can another batch today. I like to pick these when they're small. The ones that I just showed you are even a little bit on the large side. This is about perfect. They're really tender and delicious. They turn green when they're cooked, so they look similar to a regular green bean once you cook them. Past the beans, we have the other half of the garden, and this is the area that I am starting to convert over to a fall garden. So I decided to do some bush beans for my fall green bean. That's what these rows are here. And I think we're probably pretty close to seeing baby beans because we've had flowers on there for a little while. Not yet, but I know it's coming soon. Also, we have the asparagus plant that I thought for sure had died in the construction of the greenhouse. But wouldn't you know, it came back up and it is holding strong over there. This trellis is where I had cucumber plants, and I did try to replant them for fall, but like I said, it's been a really bad year for cucumbers for us for some reason. So I got 2 plants that survived, and I don't even know if they'll grow enough to give me anything before our freeze. I think our freeze is only 5 weeks away, maybe even less. We'll see. Look at this. We must have forgotten one potato. Isn't that funny? We've got potato plants growing here. So this entire space this year had been potatoes, and we harvested those, but obviously missed a few because I see some little potato sprouts coming up. Maybe we'll have a few fall potatoes. Now down here, this is kale. I mostly picked this, honestly, to feed to our dairy cow. Our pasture has just really not been in great shape this year, and so I try to give her greens whenever I can. So that's what the kale is for, and I'm going to put in a few more rows of that. This space down here I have still for planting. You can see there's a few scraggling plants here, but overall this will be a great space, and I'm going to put in a bunch of seeds. We are at the end of the 2nd week of September, so this is a good time to plant beets and carrots and other greens that will easily make it through a light frost. I have a couple cabbage plants here, and then the rest are over on the other side of the garden. I'll take you over there and show you. Also, just a few little heads of lettuce that came from volunteer seeds. These will be delicious here pretty soon. So we're back at the back half of the garden right now. Greenhouse is here. There's the little wooden gate we went in. This is my sweet potato patch. So I planted 3 different kinds of sweet potatoes this year. I had a friend who gave me slips, and one friend gave me one kind of sweet potatoes, and then I had another friend give me a few varieties that she had started. And so this is going to be an interesting mixture. Okay, this is my leftover tomato patch. I've had a lot of you tell me that things like cattle panels or hog panels are excellent for supporting tomatoes. But to tell you the truth, they're just so expensive right now. I think the last time I looked, which has been a little while, it was like $40 for one panel. I just couldn't bring myself to do it this year. Maybe if I buy them during the winter, the price will be lower. I don't know. I would love to be able to buy a bunch of those kind of panels and even make big archways for like my climbing beans to grow on that you could walk underneath. I really like that look, but it's just money. Check out these zinnias. They just don't want to die. These are new volunteers that came up. They're not going to have a chance to bloom before the frost, but they're trying their hardest, aren't they? Okay, right here, this was our blackberry vine. It produced a lot for us this year. It needs to be trimmed back. Whatever branches produced fruit this year have to be cut off. Blackberries produce on the 2nd year branches. So new branches that came, like this will bear fruit next year. On the other side of the blackberry bushes at the very back of the garden, I planted some fall greens. Now this was a little bit of an experiment, and I am shocked with the results. We had a family member give us an old seed collection. It had been sold in 2010 as a kind of like security seed collection, and so they were in Mylar bags, all packaged up. So the seeds we're talking about are 12, 13 years old. I did not think they would come up, honestly. But I thought, I'm going to give this a try. And so I planted them very thickly, thinking that maybe some would come up because the germination rate had dropped so much. I didn't know what conditions they have been stored in for the last decade. So I had very low hopes. Check this out. This is the lettuce. And these are the carrots. Look at how thick these came up. I had to laugh when I saw these rows. Excellent germination rate, clearly. I also have a few scraggly kale here. I need to plant a lot more. And some cabbages, just a few fall cabbages. I've never planted fall cabbage before. I had excellent success with my early spring cabbage this year. Big, like 9-pound heads that were beautiful. So I thought I'd give fall cabbage a try and see how it goes. We had a chicken get in the garden and wreck its chicken devastation on this one. You can see they just love to scratch. But we'll see how the rest do. I also had this window box that I had planted with lettuce when it was still really, really hot temperatures. So I planted it with seed and I put it in my well house, which was cooler to germinate so that it wasn't germinating in the heat. And it did really well. So these plants are now big enough that I can really gently pull them apart and transplant them into the soil. This is how I did my lettuce this spring, and it grew beautifully. So that will be on the list for this week. So on my list for the rest of September are harvesting those sweet potatoes and the rest of the green beans, some okra, you know, whatever presents itself, ripping out all of those tomatoes, and then planting a lot more fall vegetables that can handle some light frost. So that's any of the greens primarily, but also things like beets, and you know, those carrots can hang in there. That's what's on my list. Let me know, is there anything that you're planting in your fall garden that I should be planting too? Let me know in the comments below.